Welcome back to Pax Europiana. The podcast is again on the road. I'm here in Germany, of all places, and I'm very happy to be in Germany because Germany is, in a way, the better Austria in that context. I would like to talk about German NATO accession today and why Germany is in NATO and why Austria is not. Because you might know, Germany and Austria, they were annexed, Germany annexed Austria in the terrible year of 38, and Germany was part of the German Nazi Empire for the next 7 years until the defeat or liberation. I call it liberation. Some in Austria seem to be more in the field of calling it defeat. Western Germany and also Austria, both Germany and Austria, were then occupied by the four Allied nations who were the victories of the Second World War. But as I said in television now recently, in Servus TV, I made it very clear that it was the American physical industrial technology power which enabled the Soviet Union to even reach Vienna, Prague and Berlin. And of course it was huge manpower losses, but the fuel, the money and the mobility and the cars and the tanks and the trucks to make all this possible, they came obviously from American material technology and funding and experts. I think it is so obvious and so clear that only Stalin's propaganda is still permitting the brains of some of Vienna decision makers, and even now today in 2022 they stay neutral. That's a shame. But what happened? Both countries, because Austria was then, according to the Moscow Declaration, declared an independent country again in 45, and both nations then they became quadruple occupied, liberated by the four powers. The French also got a part of Germany and Austria, and obviously that is the history of the next 10 years. And then came the full-scale escalation, especially between 47 and 53, when Stalin was continuing the war. Basically, he took over China, he greenlighted the invasion of South Korea, he greenlighted the invasion of Vietnam. The French had to fight in Vietnam, the Americans in Korea, the Chinese lost and had to withdraw to Taiwan, and of course he took over all of Eastern Europe, and obviously he took over then as well much of the rest of the world in these sweeping efforts. But he was stopped in Korea. He then was removed from power by himself, accident, or I think it was more a managed transition to end his disastrous confrontational war. And the successor regimes then had some kind of consolidation to do. The same they will have to do after the fall of Putin, and hopefully leading to the breakup. In the case of the Soviet Union, it didn't lead to a breakup, but it led to a policy of accommodation. They tried to settle some things because they saw that their situation in Eastern Germany is very untenable. There was the 17th of June revolution by the Eastern Germans, and that was leading then to rethinking and then to the division of Germany by introducing, it was already in 48, the German mark, and Western Germany, of course, getting so much more successful as a federal republic supported by the West. And then, obviously, as a result of the Korea War and of the 17th of June, and there was then the clear direction to integrate Western Germany in NATO against the French will. They always hated the Germans, and they are blocking NATO enlargement then and today, but they were less powerful and nobody listened to them in America. And so Western Germany was integrated in NATO on the 6th of May of 1955, and that was good so, because that way we won the Cold War. Obviously it took another 40 years or 35 years from 55. Of course it is 35 long years until the industrial power of Western Germany and united in the West obviously could somehow outperform the Eastern declining economies, and it took many more years where the East was going very strong because of they could invade Afghanistan, they had the resources of China, and so on and so on. But there were major things happening then in the Soviet bloc, in the communist world, especially the complete confusion in Moscow, the takeover, the armed suppression of Hungary, and especially then the complete break with China and the invasion of Czechoslovakia, which led to the Sino-Soviet split. It started in 1960, but it basically came because Khrushchev wanted to remove the Stalin legacy. And also Khrushchev did many things which the Soviets didn't approve of, the Chinese didn't approve of, and so it went always worse and worse, and we had this absolute crisis. And then of course there came many other things which the world knows, especially the invasion of Afghanistan, and then the consequent war with the Muslim world, and the Muslim world led by Saudi Arabia being ready to decrease increase the level of oil supply so much, and that they had basically the drop of the oil price, and this brought the Soviet Union to the knees, because German and Austrian left-wing complicity in the gas and oil sector kept the Soviets funded for a long time, because the way to bring this cheap Soviet gas and energy towards Germany, that was basically the deals of the 70s of the left-wing governments of Brandt and of Kreisky, to turn Austria into a hub for the Soviet Union gas sales towards Western Europe, and make a lot of money for that. And with that money they could fund the global expansion from 68 to the end of basically 85. This was the terrible years. There was no appeasement, there was no rapprochement, kind of détente. This was absolutely wrong perception of history. It was our worst years from 68 towards the years when we had this big crisis, and the good times came with the second mandate of Reagan. I wonder why the people have forgotten that obvious fact, and it's so clear, and we are in this absolute misunderstanding about our own history for some reasons. I'm now in the former American liberated part of Germany. This is southwest Germany. I'm driving now from Frankfurt south and actually going to Heidelberg, most famous for Elvis Presley being stationed here and singing Musi denn zum Städterle hinaus. And this is of course the big song which made him famous in the German-speaking world when he came as a soldier here. I'm getting a bit tired. My life is a bit of a road movie. After I left Austria, after I've been this 6 years in Brussels, I remember driving back from Brussels after I had to give back the apartment in 2004. Then I went to Vienna with my stuff. And now I'm back again with my stuff here. After a big round circle, I'm from Brussels to Vienna. Then from Vienna I went with my stuff to Kosovo, Albania, and then Kosovo again. I remember that. Then from Kosovo to Vienna, and from Vienna then it was back to Ukraine. I remember that transfer very vividly in 2016, and then the 4 years in Ukraine, then coming back, then they stopped me at the customs border. The Ukrainians, you cannot help the Ukrainians very much. They are really so regulation driven and sticking to rules. They lack all flexibility, but okay, now they are heroes. But I was a bit critical at that times. They stopped my car because of the customs issue. Yes, and then I had to bring everything back, and then it entered to Germany, and now it was in Germany for 2 years, and now in 2022 I'm returning. After basically from 2005 I started my Balkans adventure, and that was now basically, when you round it up, It is from 2005, 10, 17 years. And I was also working a bit in Kosovo, Montenegro, but that was basically then Ukraine. If you see the four southern Balkan countries and Ukraine, because in Georgia and in Moldova I was only on visits, yeah. So this was basically then a 17 years tour through the four Balkan countries, living mostly in Albania and Kosovo, but a holiday house in Montenegro. And so this were the 17 years now. I have to be a bit careful. I don't know why they are braking like this. That's a bit crazy here. German motorways are very full, and they are a little bit, maybe I should not do podcasting during this. That's the other truth of my life. Heidelberg seems to be very busy. Maybe I should have gone via Frankfurt, but who knows, yeah? Yeah, this is the big thing here. There's a lot of trucks, and this is very busy, very affluent area of the world, but also very busy area, it seems. And there are like many trucks. I try to overtake, but it's not really so easy to do. I don't know exactly why they had it all like this. Okay, this one it. Maybe I should do things differently. They let me go. Yeah, this is how it is. It's one of the most dynamic areas of the European economy, and it's very good. Kreuzwaldorf, they are going here. I just have to check that I'm not going wrong. Aha, this is where I have to go. This is going to 6, yeah? Now I have to understand that this is basically leaving to 6, yeah? Highway number 6 leading me to Stuttgart-Heilbronn. I have to check a bit where I have to go, but I have to go to Heilbronn. This is where my grandfather married his wife. Some family recollection here. It was a long time ago in the war. Heilbronn number 6, Hockenheim. There is a rally area. Hockenheim is the Grand Prix of Germany, as far as I know. But this area I really don't know very well. I know I rediscover Austria now in this new phase. But I'm now 17 years on the road. And now we have to see a bit how we do everything here. I have to go to Heilbronn, that I know. Stuttgart, Hockenheim. Road number 6. Dreieck Hockenheim, Stuttgart, Heilbronn. Very good. Now, this is a little bit of an update of my life. I will keep you a bit posted on some aspects on my trip here today. And I show you, of course, this magnificent infrastructure of this really very rich and beautiful places here. I couldn't show you so much because I was really very busy with other things of Germany here. But I will in the future show you as well on this podcast this very, very nice area here. There's much to be seen and I really like it. It is actually very nice ancient cities. Much of it was not destroyed in World War II, and it's really very nice. Yeah, it's very beautiful. This Heidelberg, yeah, and Bensheim, Weinheim, a lot of Stuttgart-Heilbronn. This is the road. Stuttgart-Heilbronn. I go to Heilbronn. Beautiful place, yeah. I have perfect weather to travel. The tank is full, the car is rented, and I'm heading to Vienna. Yes, my plans for Vienna are also very clear. I want to lead this topic of Austria to join NATO towards success, and then also continue the whole EU enlargement debate and turn Austria into a pro-enlargement country to support the Balkans and Ukraine, and also the openness of the labor market, the euro, and also the trade agreements. I will roll out all this agenda. That's basically the NATO enlargement, the euro enlargement, the EU trade agreement enlargement, like now Lula has won in Brazil. It's very important that we go in the next phase now, and we make sure that we have the FTA with Mercosur, the TTIP, and of course with the Gulf Cooperation Council, with ASEAN, with Indonesia, with India. All these trade agreements must be done now. And look how strong the economy is. You know, this is a normal motorway in Germany today. This is it, yeah. You know, this is amazing. There is the need for better infrastructure in Europe, of course, yeah. That is also my topic. Better infrastructure, interconnectivity in all Europe. Much more highways, railways. Yeah. This is absolutely needed. Look how many highway trucks are going here. And there is a huge need for more support and more development and more infrastructure, including Ukraine and the Balkans and Turkey. Obviously, now it needs a new debt package. I didn't have time to write it up, but I'm calling for a 1.5 trillion EU debt deal, and it will come. You will see. Also this debate I will win. I don't know what this failed Lindner is doing. The Germans are spending, now you see here, this is 200 kilometers until Nuremberg, and I will travel there. And this, you see, this is Germany. Yeah? This is Central Europe. This is the reason we need more highways, we need more railways, we need a real strong infrastructure package, because prosperity requires mobility. And goods and people must move freely in Europe. And the left and the Greens are totally wrong to reduce highways and to reduce railways and reduce mobility. We need more mobility, but we need to electrify it. Yeah? I'm fully supportive of the 2030 target to end new registrations for private vehicles. I actually call also for a more ambitious. I think 2030 is much better than 35. Let's transit towards the e-mobility. Absolutely, with the new cars, new registered cars must be fully in that line. That's much better. I was calling already for that in the press article for the new elections. Yeah? But my main topic, of course, my campaign topic is NATO accession of Austria. That's very important. And then I will also roll out the next people's petition is for the opening of the labor market for the Ukrainians and for all Western Balkans and all EU candidate states. The logic is quite simple. You know, all EU countries should be NATO, the EU should be NATO, the EU candidate countries should be already economically integrated by the euro as currency, by the open labor market, and all, of course, the energy market, the infrastructure market. They should be fully funded to join I have to be a bit careful. They're driving wild here because they are very busy, everybody. I'm driving careful because I'm podcasting, and in general I like to be driving careful. We should also have a full supervision system of the electronics here. You know, the speed of it's not important to drive fast. It's important to drive safely and not to have traffic jams. So what we need is to avoid traffic jams. We need better managed mobility. Yeah? You have to reduce the speed. You have to increase the flow of mobility. Look at it, it's quite outrageous what I see on the other side. Such a big traffic jam again of trucks. Here Nuremberg is 200 kilometers. I have to go to Nuremberg and then I move towards Austria. And I will roll out all these topics. Make that my legacy. Yeah? NATO membership and also the opening of the labor market of Austria and also, of course, the Euro for all candidate status. That's basically the basic idea. You have all EU candidate status are treated like members. They are not political members. They have not fulfilled all criteria. They must do that, and we must do it fast until 2029. But of course, in the meantime, they can already take on the Euro. We can open the labor market. We can integrate them in the agricultural market. We can obviously integrate them in our trade system. We can integrate them in our internal market, and of course in our energy market. And we can fund infrastructure in a much more generous way, because all the countries there, especially Ukraine, the costs are now 750 billion already. As I said already the last time, I calculated it roughly that the costs, simply the costs for Corona was 750, the recovery fund. And if you're honest, it's about double the size the crisis we are here, because this crisis is much bigger crisis than the 2020 crisis, because the war is the ultimate war we are in here. This is the absolutely mega crisis we are in here. Not economically, we will recover because we are rich, yeah? But of course it's the big war with Russia in which we are, and we have to win it, so we have to arm Ukraine. The statistics are also very clear now. The Germans have given 2.4% of their defense budget, the Latvians 41% of the defense budget, the Austrians 0.1. So neutrality kills. And we have to make that message very clear in the coming weeks. Everybody in NATO, everybody in the Euro, everybody in one common labor market, and of course opening towards the West and the free world, because the left has kept us down. They have promoted appeasement of Russia and trade deals, energy deals with Russia in order to fit their submission agenda. This is the legacy of the German Social Democrats and the Austrian Social Democrats and the Austrian nationalists, and these are all my enemies. My enemies are very clear. These are the Austrian nationalists and the Austrian socialists. Yeah? I call them the Nazi coalition. They want to do that. They will do a coalition if they can. And that's the Nazi coalition for me. And yeah, it's maybe provocative, but I say everybody who votes for the Social Democrat will get a nationalist FPÖ. That's the way. I will destroy the SPÖ and I will destroy the FPÖ. They are the Nazi parties, the Russian parties, the yoke parties of Russia, the servants of Putin. I hate them. And the good parties in Austria, it's also very clear. It's the Neos, it's the Volkspartei and the Greens, and they need to do one coalition together, and then to bring the country into NATO, and to also do all the necessary reforms in the openness, in the EU enlargement, in the energy transition, in the infrastructure. But we need more infrastructure, obviously. It's outrageous when you look at it. Germany has done some better infrastructure. Here it's a 3-lane highway, still the trucks are queuing, but they have done something. And they have done, as all countries in Europe, unfortunately, because we are not a full union in infrastructure, they all do this kind of internal infrastructure connectivity. Like as a result of the German unity, they have done wonderful things in Germany now with the 2000 with the highway, the railway connection very fast from Munich, the southern capital of Germany, towards Berlin, the capital of Germany. And this is now in 3.5 hours. That's very good. When you go the same distance in east-west, for example, from Vienna to Frankfurt, you need 3 times the hours, 9 hours. It's the same distance. And here we are in that level of crisis in Europe. And here somebody overtakes me. I'm driving probably not correctly on the right lane. But this is exactly how it is. Yeah? This is exactly how the crisis is. Yeah? And that's what is so wrong. And I hate it. We need a much better European Union, stronger unity. The East-West, the connectivity between Frankfurt and Dubrovnik, between Frankfurt and Istanbul, Frankfurt as the hub of Europe in infrastructure. Absolutely. And then you need to connect to the Black Sea. Now, for example, we have now almost a whole year now the war, since the 24th of February. And everybody knows the Black Sea is extremely difficult as a sea, because why? It was always like this since 2000 years or 7,000 years since the Bosporus has broken and this sea has separated, whatever the exact historical dates, but that this sea is very difficult to leave, is since antiquity the reality. And now we are here in this absolute escalation of the war, and we are in war since 2014. And now in 2000, when the Black Sea blockade is, we are discovering the situation that we need a better inland connectivity along the Danube. Mr. Buzek, from his grave, he would stand up and say, I cannot believe it, that they are now discovering the Danube is a good transport route. Hey guys, are you completely nuts in Brussels and in Romania? Let's build all the infrastructure like fully. We need the railways, the highways. I'm posting now since so many years, and also the Danube. This must be all a very strong infrastructure. It's a bit more expensive by land, I understand, and the ships are ready in the Black Sea, but this is always the blackmail game of Russia. Now Erdogan seemingly has outperformed Putin and has allowed this convoy to pass. Yes, and maybe Russia will fall, and I hope so that Russia will fall. But the same people, the same useless political establishment in Germany, Brussels and America, I'm saying it clearly, who have not built the highways towards Ukraine and the railways towards Ukraine, they will say, oh, let's work for Russian unity under Navalny or some kind of joke. No, there should be no Russian unity. The Russian Federation must be ended. The same as Iran. Dangerous, brutal central regimes must be ended. They must be destroyed. And not by us, but by their own centrifugal forces. And we must recognize the new countries which want to be independent. We have betrayed the Chechens. This was outrageous. We should have very clearly said to the Chechens, that's the way forward. And yes, Chechnya must be independent, and Buryatia must be independent, and Ingushetia and Dagestan and all Karelia, all this will want their independence, and it's the Western duty to support them, and no kind of new Putin. And oh, it's so good to talk to one guy, he's a good dictator, we can talk to him so nicely, and he can suppress his people and kill them all. And we make business and buy some energy. No, that's so bad. I hope there will be absolute clarity in changing that, And here we have very good future, as I'm optimistic we will have it. Good. More to come from the beautiful... No, I'm not leaving, I'm just checking the orientation. Yes. What we need is to de-recognize Russia and Iran. They are the enemy states. I don't think it's necessary with China. I'm a bit soft on China. Everybody will criticize me for that. But I think China is a different case. It's also an empire. It's also communist. It also must reform and change. But I think we need China now as a strategic ally, as we had it since basically the 70s. China hated the Soviets, and they were obviously working with the West on many issues in Vietnam, in Afghanistan, especially after 1980. They were really like a secret ally. After they have won against America in Vietnam, and then they saw what kind of regime they got, and then the Russians were going bunkers in Afghanistan, and then they changed to the West. It's so unknown in the West, but in the 80s the Chinese were absolutely an ally, supplying weapons to Afghanistan and doing a lot of support on many fields in the world against the Soviet Union. One of the reasons, of course, the Soviet Union was defeated was this cooperation between America and China and Saudi Arabia. Yeah, that opens also the debate about the free trade agreements, because now with the victory of Lula, it's absolutely the case that we have to conclude the Mercosur agreement. Now very fast, it's ready. It just needs to be ratified and put in power, like the CETA agreement. The complete immoral people in Brussels who have delayed it, and the failed Emmanuel, he is the biggest disaster we have in Europe, the great European. The only thing we can say about Emmanuel that he is not Le Pen, that's the only good thing. Yes. Anyhow, we need this free trade agreement, and then we need the other. I have counted 10. There might be more. Some are up for renovation. It's a complete list on the DG trade. But the most important are simply the most problematic, which we have not done for 50 years. It's the Mercosur with Brazil and Argentina, and it's the TTIP with the US. It's with India, with China, the CAI, and it's with ASEAN, the trade bloc, where Indonesia is the main partner, and with Australia. Yes, we have done now New Zealand, very good, long overdue, and then we need to renew some, like in Chile and Mexico. That's also very good, but the most important is then the Gulf Cooperation Council and what Ursula von der Leyen has personally promised in Addis Ababa with the African Union. And now, where is it? And of course we have to include all future EU members into the EU Customs Union, and that's also very important. That's a very good thing to do. Now we're heading towards Nuremberg, and you see still so many trucks everywhere. This is very good. Here the motorway is very good, I really like it. We have very good driving conditions. And I'm optimistic. It will be a long day because the highways are good, because the problem, of course, in Germany is that the highway is not very good from Nuremberg towards Linz. That is a big problem. Why is it? Because again, also in the highways, you see, for example, south of München. I will not go via München now because it's very problematic. It's a big economic center, but it's of course very, very problematic, and kind of clogged. And then you have on the extension some direction towards the richer parts of Europe, and not to the east, are well done in Munich, but the parts towards Austria are not. Also because the Upper Austrians are not building the A94 connection from Braunau towards the main highway system, which we need to do. But we have this kind of soft politicians who are, oh no, a new highway that destroys the Boden, the land. I hate this. The worst debate in Austria, I really get angry, even the Neos have that. Oh, the Bodenvernichtung. As if, the Boden, that's the destruction of the land, is claimed when you build infrastructure or residential buildings, or you use the land for the people to drive, to live, to work, to have companies, to have infrastructure. Then they call it the destruction of the Boden. And that's Nazi ideology par excellence. That's the poor Nazi, the Boden philosophy. Hey, it's so bad. But the left is in this Nazi kind of thinking, and then everybody makes blah blah and repeats it. The truth is, land must be used wisely and smartly and efficiently. It must be used for infrastructure, for motorways, for railways, and for water systems and for energy systems. It must be used also for residential purposes, because people have to live somewhere. And we are driving up the prices for houses because we are restrictive in our planning permissions. That's so bad. And then it must be used for industrial purposes and for commercial purposes. You need retail and shopping centers. You need decent commercial outlets for all these commercial needs. And you need also industry. We need to produce metals and work with them and have smelters, and we need industrial development in Europe. You cannot just give everything to China. That's completely crazy, and I never argued for that. But when we drive up the prices for everything because of expensive land use restrictions, and extremely crazy environmental protection, of course we need to protect the environment, but please, we are not doing it. The Germans are complaining about everything, that the water system is not good in their rivers. Clean it up. Clean it up. I cannot see. This is good companies here, and you need to use land wisely. Of course, you need to allow more people, more land. We are now 8 billion people on the world, and Germany has now about 4.5 million, which is quite a lot, if you think about it. 4.5 million than 20 years ago, because Germany was basically very ungovernable until 2000, and then came the reforms. Why? Because Germany was, of course, too focused on not ungovernable. Coal was good in its times, but it was tremendous things to do. I want to correct myself. I didn't say ungovernable, but I said it was focused on German unification and on the euro, and coal was in big things. But economically, he was not ready to tackle the challenges. We all have written about it and argued for it. Of course, it was a big problem not to have a free trade agreement with America. It was a big problem not to, but then the EU enlargement, so coal was fine. But of course, then came all this lack of reforms, and he was not focused on the economy anymore. And then Schröder, the first mandate was absolute disaster, and then came the second mandate when they started to do decent things again. And then they started with Agenda 2010, reforming the labor market, the social system, not the taxes, unfortunately. That was the big failure of Merkel later. But there was reforms, and then Germany and Austria as well, with our change, which was also very problematic, but at least from 2000 onwards this countries really changed, and the effect of the enlargement came. That was so important to bring 100 million new Europeans into the EU by 2004, and then basically this was very boom years. And then after 2000 it was too good, because then after 2008 Putin started to push the system hard, rock the boat, and of course financial crisis came, and of course, and then it was one crisis after the next. And Russia's hand certainly behind many of it, as we know now, and we will find out much more. And definitely they have made the bigger refugee crisis with Syria, there's no doubt. The debt crisis, 2011, then obviously the full escalation of the Syrian war, Libyan war, and all these things. We are in a big confrontation, and I don't blame the great financial crisis on Russia, but what is the fact? Obviously, in Marxist ideology, which Putin is raised, the moment there came the 2029 crisis, the great world economic crisis, Stalin knew that according to their philosophy of Marx and Leninism, that's the end of capitalism. Now they have to prepare for the next big war. That was their thinking, their reading of the situation, because they have always interpreted the 1907 crisis, the so-called silver crisis, or whatever you want to call it, this big crisis in American and world economy, as the starting point of the First World War. Because of the breakdown of the capitalist system, must be replaced, will lead to war, and socialism will win. And it won in Russia. It was the biggest disaster of the world's history, that the socialists have won in Russia and killed so many people during the civil wars. It was one of the worst things ever in history to happen, and it was a complete disaster for Russia and for the world. And we are still now in the aftermath of this big crisis. And of course we need global stability system, but when it came in 2008, then of course the Russian philosophers and thinkers and strategists, they thought that's the end of the West. Now they can go full in, and of course, and then came crisis by crisis, and they took the opportunity in Georgia, and then came, that was 2008, and then was 2009, just to get me right, which crisis came next. Then there was the 11 financial crisis in Greece, because afterwards we had the euro crisis, after the financial crisis the European payment crisis, leading to the Greek crisis. Then started the wars in Libya and in Syria, and the Russian intervention came a bit later, but it was already a very big refugee crisis. 2015, the war in 2014, of course in Ukraine, and then 2016 the Brexit crisis and the Trump re-election, and so on and so on and so on. And we are now in the perma crisis, as they call it, from 2008 onwards. And Russia, of course, thinks that's the end of the West, and it will not. It will be the end of Russia. And it will also not be the Chinese world. It's not gonna happen. This is Heilbronn. I have some family relation here, but it's distant now. I will not stop because I have really quite a long way to go still. Oh, here they have a big Heilbronn has energy. I hope that's a nuclear thing which they will Neckarsulm. Yeah, I think that's exactly a nuclear power station. Bravo, Germany. Continue nuclear, but European nuclear. I never understood, now for example the Polish and Poland will go for nuclear, but for American nuclear. We can also go for Swedish or German or French nuclear, I'm not, but we need Western nuclear technology. And it was one of the big mistakes after the opening of the West. We have not transited away from the Russian energy system, also in nuclear, because that is so logical that we do that, and we should do that. Yeah? And of course we should completely end our dependency on the Russian nuclear system. It's expensive, that's why we have the EU. Whatever it takes, we will pay for the Czechs, for the Slovaks, for the Bulgarians, and who else? And then, then the traitor, Orban's man, also Putin's man Orban, he is then building a nuclear power station with Russian technology and Russian funding by Rosatom. That's outrageous thing that he has done that, and it must be stopped. The Finns have stopped it, very good, and they joined NATO, and they are cleaning up their mess. Neckarsulm, very good. Bravo nuclear. I'm not specifically for nuclear, and I'm also not for Austria to join nuclear, but the thing is, when we have nuclear already, to cut it off in the middle of a big crisis is totally crazy, obviously. Absolutely ridiculous political move. And when you have European nuclear, it's anyhow very expensive because higher security, and it's good to have high security. And there was, to my best knowledge, never any kind of nuclear accident inside the European Union. They were in the US, in Japan, and maybe in the UK, but not in the European Union, as I know it, because they have very strict security. And we should basically have a much better usage of nuclear power on European regulatory terms, and that's absolutely possible. Here it's beautiful wineland, I think it's wine or some fruits. It's very good. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. We need more energy. Solar energy could be everywhere here. That really makes me so angry when I drive on a motorway here and I don't see a single panel. I mean, and no wind turbine. I mean, this could be all full. This is all next to the highway. The highways could be covered with solar. Everything could be solarized and used for wind. But no, because it doesn't look good. I mean, that's something I can really not understand. If somebody says something like that, doesn't look good. In Austria we have a lot of the regions, they don't allow wind because it's problematic. Yes, doesn't look good. And then we buy Russian energy and fund wars and dictatorships in the rest of the world because the Kärntner people think the wind turbines don't look good. I mean, you really wonder what kind of idiots we have in power. And it's also because of the media reflecting that, every crazy person gets into the media and says, oh, I don't like the wind. Yeah, then let's not wind it. It's democracy. I'm person. It's totally like what we do. I don't like highways. I don't like railways. I don't like wind. We live in the Stone Age. It's ridiculous. Now I have to concentrate myself a bit on where I'm going here. I think I will not make videos more than 45 minutes. I will stop here now, but I will be back and I will keep you posted and that's the road to Nuremberg. Bye.